Hey everyone, I'm Priya and I interview boutique fitness business founders to learn about their journey and inspire other studio owners. Today I'm excited to welcome Megan Seward Covertson to the show. Megan is the owner of a yoga studio called Megan's Yoga Tribe. She's a yoga instructor, entrepreneur, business coach, mom of four, and a foodie. What began as a personal journey for Megan quickly became a passion for sharing yoga's transformative power with others, and she launched her yoga bar and Pilates studio in 2020. After earning her 200-hour RYT certification in 2015, Megan has been dedicated to serving her community through yoga classes, retreats, workshops, and more. Megan, it's a pleasure to have you on the show to share your journey with us. Megan, thank you so much for coming on the show. Let's start with you telling our listeners a little more about yourself and what you do.
Sure. I am a mom of four. I am a wife to a man who I love fiercely, and I am the owner and founder of Megan's Yoga Tribe, which is yoga studios as well as yoga teacher training schools and retreats, as well as community events and workshops and anything really health and wellness we encompass.
Amazing. And do you want to talk more about the studio side, like the business side?
Sure, absolutely. So we launched originally as an online yoga bar Pilates studio during the pandemic. So spring of 2020, all of the sacred yoga studios had closed down, and I knew that people needed mindfulness, they needed movement, they needed community more than ever because there was so much unknowns. I
Yeah.
had never done an online yoga class. I had never used Zoom. I had never done a Facebook Live. So it was a learning curve. And for 60 days, we offered it completely for free while I kind of created a membership on my back end of my website. And then we launched Megan's Yoga Tribe online studio. Was hugely successful. It was so wonderful to be able to create
Amazing.
community when people couldn't be together. And then 2 years after that, we opened our first location, our first physical location in the town I live in called Lee Summit. And then we were at capacity within 30 days. And so then a year later, we opened our second studio. And then around the same time, we opened our yoga teacher training school as well. And we're looking to expand probably two or three more studios within the next 3 to 5 years.
That's wonderful. That sounds wonderful. And I'm glad that you were able to expand like that and grow your business. We'll get more into the business side definitely towards the later part of our conversation, Megan, definitely. But you mentioned about, being a mom of four, the family. So let's talk more about that. How is Megan when she's not working? How's the personal life? Yeah. I
Well,
love
that's
that part.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I believe that I get to be the mom that I desire to be, which is, I like to say, be present where my feet are grounded because of my yoga practice. Most people land in yoga crisis, or they've tried everything else and nothing seems to work. And that was my story too. I landed in yoga after my first child was born, and she just turned 18. So I've been practicing yoga for 18 years. And it was the
Wow.
only place that I could quiet my mind and really tune into my soul, check in with my heart. And so my yoga practice really translates into being able to be that present mom that I desire to be. I always say I'm doing the best I can. At the end of the day, I do believe my husband's the better parent for sure. And I admire the way he can parent with such intention and so thoughtful. And I learn a lot just being able to parent with him. But yeah, it's busy. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I would have four children, but we like even numbers. So after we had three, we thought, well, we might as well even this out. And
Yeah.
it's a lot. It's a lot to manage. I feel like every single day we have three or four activities every single night. There's just a lot going on. But I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I have the flexibility and freedom of entrepreneurship, of owning my own business, because there is no way that I would be able to be as involved with my kids and all of their dreams and activities and hobbies if I didn't have flexibility of being a business owner. Yeah.
I
So
totally get that, right? That thanks so much for sharing that. That balance is, really important, and I'm glad that you have that flexibility. And it's just beautiful. Like, I mean, my sister, I have a niece who's 5 year old. She was here recently, right? It's so difficult to manage, and I was working from home back then, so I get where you're coming from. And sounded lovely. Thanks so much for sharing, Megan. You spoke of entrepreneurship also, so let's get a little bit into that. I was just, going through your website, trying to learn more about you. And I loved how honestly you've mentioned on your website about the times you lived in fear and then you made it to a six-figure yoga business, right? So if you don't mind, you want to talk about those tough times? Because, I understand that being an entrepreneur isn't all roses and rainbows, right? There are those tough times also. So do you mind sharing that?
yeah, I'm happy to share my story. So I have never worked for anyone else. I started my first company when I was 20 years old. I started the loan process. And so when I
Wow.
was 21, I was $1 million in debt at 21 on my first business adventure. And I know for me, it was like monopoly money because when you're 20 or 21, you don't have any concept of money.
Yeah.
And I got into an industry that at the time I felt like I was aligned with. And then very soon after, I realized that I wasn't aligned at all. So I opened a franchise of tanning salons, like physically tanning your skin. And
Hmm.
when you're 20, I thought it was a great opportunity. It seemed lucrative. It looked good on a balance sheet. I was passionate about it, and then quickly realized like this is a terrible thing. This is going to hurt people, and so I had a moral conflict because I was $1 million in debt. I had two physical locations. I had between 30 and 50 employees depending seasonally, and I say for about my entire 20s, it really stole my soul because I wasn't living in an alignment. I really felt like a fraud because it didn't align with who I was. And I discovered who I was on my yoga mat. And my yoga mat told me, like, this isn't who you are. This doesn't define you. And I had to create a way to get out of that.
Yeah.
And so, as my yoga practice, became such a pivotal part of my life, I decided to go through yoga teacher training at that time when I still owned my
I
other
see.
companies.
Hmm.
And that was for me where I transformed my life. And that's why I'm so passionate about yoga being the vessel for other people to transform their lives. Because it was the first time I could quiet my mind and be like, this isn't the life I desire. I want more. I don't want to live in this fear. I don't want to live in this turmoil morally about what I do and who I am. And so on my yoga mat, I was able to dream so flippin' big. And I saw this vision. I can't believe I get to live it. And I do not take it for granted because for 15 years, did something that felt so misaligned. And when I sold those companies, I said to my husband, I will never do something that I don't feel completely aligned with. And that's how Megan's Yoga Tribe really was born. It is absolutely my life's purpose, and it's completely aligned with who I am and my mission in this world to live in a world with more peace and love. And for me, the catalyst for that is simply a yoga mat. But really, what I'm an expert at is creating community. So that's my story. I've come a long way.
No, that's a very inspiring story, I would say, because here's something I'm able to relate to. So back in 2017, when I was doing my engineering and getting into marketing, right, my family was kind of, what are you doing? And just the way you said, right, you were not happy. You had that moral, moment. You were like, what am I doing? This is not me. I had that. I was like, I'm doing engineering. That's great, but can I be a good engineer? I'm not sure. And that's how I got into marketing, right? So whatever you said, it hit so well, and I kind of felt like nostalgic that, hey, I've been there. So it's very important to kind of enjoy what you do, and feel passionate about it. So very well explained, and that's a lovely story for me. So and you kind of answered my next question, which was going to be, what's your story, what got you into yoga, how do you get the inspiration? But I also read about you having a brick and mortar business. So was it the tan business that you were speaking of, the same
It
one?
was. Yes. Yep.
Got it. Got it. And which year did you start your yoga studio business, and how did you feel
Sure.
starting up, right? What were those initial thoughts as an entrepreneur? Did you have any doubts? Were you like, is this right or wrong? What was that?
Right. So I started teaching yoga back in 2009. Yeah, I started teaching yoga in 2009, and I just taught at studios, and it lit me up. I always said it was my passion project. I was a morning teacher. I taught every single morning. I loved it. But then when I sold my other companies, then it gave me permission to really start my own community and my own business. So that was in 2020 when I started Megan's Yoga Tribe. So we're still an infant. It's only been 4.5 years, but I poured my heart and my soul into it
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
last 4.5 years.
I'm sure you're doing your best. We all are. And right now, to me, you sound like a superwoman because you said, mom of four, entrepreneur, yoga teacher, and then business. I understand it must be, so much to manage. And I'm sure you're doing your best. So there's no doubt about it. I did have this question. So how did you manage with the funds initially? You said that you sold your previous businesses. Is that how you got the funds? And how did the team look like? How did you start, building your own team? How was that?
Okay, so I love this question because it's something um, probably I talk to my therapist a lot about. So I definitely have financial trauma when you go into $1 million debt when you're 20 years old. And so for me, I told myself I will never go in debt again because I know what that burden felt like. So no, I have absolutely paid for cash. For me, I have not expanded until I was in a position where I felt it was sustainable and had the capital to expand. I have not taken out any loans. I have not. This has all been very much. It's been planned. It's been intentional. When we started, I was the only teacher. I was teaching every single class. It was just very strategic because I didn't want to feel the burden of ever being in debt again. When I finally gotten freedom from that, and now, so we've learned as we've grown, but I feel like I've done it very strategically where I refused, good or bad, to go into debt. So
Yeah.
financially,
Yeah.
it's a lot of hard work. I have worked very, very hard to be able to be in that position, but I plan to stay in it. And so when the time is right, when we have grown enough, that's when we will open our next studio. And then when the time is right and we've grown enough, then I will, because there's something with yoga studios that lots of times they're not sustainable because you have a yoga instructor running them who is this passionate yoga instructor that's creative and soulful, but maybe not an entrepreneur. And I was an entrepreneur before I was ever a yoga instructor. And so
Yeah.
for me, if yoga's businesses cannot stay in business, it's a disservice to the community. So it's very important for me to be able to build and scale sustainable so that we can continue to make a massive impact in this world. So,
Yeah. Right. Here's a question coming personally from me, Megan, out of curiosity. How did you remain consistent with your yoga? I mean, you had the inspiration, you had your mat, but how did you stay on the mat? Because honestly, I've been trying to do this. I have the motivation. I'm like, I really want to. I mean, I just turned 30, right? So I'm like, now is a good time to just, get into yoga. And that's for my own well being, right? To become calm and have that kind of healthy lifestyle, right? But I'm just not able to, be consistent with it. So, how did you do it as an individual?
sure. For me, when I first started practicing yoga, it was the only thing I did for myself. As a
Mm.
busy working mom, I was also like having kids during this whole season of falling in love with yoga. So it was that one thing for me that I got to go and do for myself. So that really kept me consistent because when you are at home all day with toddlers, you will do like I would be happy just to get in my car and go sit in my driveway. So the fact that I got to get in my car and drive to a yoga studio and then have someone else tell me what to do for 1 hour and I don't have to think or take care of anyone else besides myself, it made it pretty easy to stay consistent. It was just that one thing I did for myself. And
Got
then
it.
after opening my studios, teaching, of course, I always want to be a student. Um, but teaching for me, it makes me show up for my community. It makes me show up for myself. And then as a student, I love, so we now have over almost 60 instructors. So I have it's 60
Wow.
instructors who work for me. And I love going to their classes. So that keeps me a student as well because I want to go. I want to go experience their classes. I want to go be a student in my own studios.
Right. Course. It must have become like a me time activity for you, right? Like this is just me, away from like shutting out the world and just something that I enjoy. So I totally get that, and thanks so much for sharing that, Megan. Again, on your website, this is something that really fascinated me. It said we're so much more than yoga at Megan's Yoga Tribe, right? So could you tell us more about that? What does that mean? More than
Sure.
yoga?
Yeah. Um, it's interesting because I really believe I am an expert at creating community. And what I realized is I studied happiness about 15 years ago, and the happiest people felt connected. They
Mm,
felt like they were seen. They felt like they had people to support them. And that's community to me. And that's where tribe came from, Megan's Yoga Tribe. And
yes.
so, in building a community, we have offered so much more than yoga. We offer deep connections, real, authentic. We hold space for people to show up no matter what season of life they're in, on their yoga mat or off their yoga mat. And I think that's very unique. There's no ego or competition. There's no judgment in this studio. We don't have mirrors. So I think it takes some of that barriers down that people feel safe and at home. But we offer yoga, we offer bar, we offer Pilates, we offer Zumba, we offer retreats all across the world, teacher trainings. We offer tons of workshops for those people that are looking for more. We really focus on that growth and healing. Um, so I just, we're just so much more than yoga. Yes,
Yeah.
yoga is what gets people in Megan's yoga tribe, like into a class. But what keeps them there is truly the community. It's how they feel. And I'm on a mission to really make people create and live a life that feels good, not that just looks good. That's a
Feels
social
good.
media thing. We
Yeah.
want people to feel good in their lives.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and I also believe my team, our instructors serve with purpose and passion, and they are so intentional and they hold space for all our amazing clients. And so I think it just like circles back to we're more than just a yoga class. We're
Of course,
more
it's
than a
more like a
fitness
tribe.
studio. We are. We're transforming from the inside out, truly.
For sure, and very well put together. I wanted to get into the part where how do entrepreneurs, because I'm talking to one and I'm really curious about this, how do they unplug, right? You did mention about, having yoga as your as me time, but is there something else? How, like, what are you doing when you're not working?
Sure. Okay, I'll be very transparent. I work a lot. And there are three things I do with my disposable income that are for me. I
Mhm.
get massages, I get facials, and I travel. So those are the
Okay.
three things that I do, and travel is really, really important to me,
Hmm.
especially
Hmm.
traveling as a family, traveling as a couple with just my husband,
Yeah.
traveling with other couples, so my husband and I with other close friends, and
Mhm.
then traveling solo, traveling alone. This is kind of how I have to reset, recalibrate, because I do pour so much of my energy, my heart, my soul into
Right.
others that I have to have these things to kind of reset, to recharge, so that I can continue to serve the way I desire.
Of course, it's like you work hard and then you party harder, which is like, it's the word party, but then you unplug that way because you deserve it. You've put in so much hard work. So why not, treat yourself with, be it traveling or, spending time with family or even other things, right? Which was the last place that you went to, like recently?
Oh, yeah. So we just had some really, really great travel. So
Mhm.
we were in the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee. We stayed in two different places. We stayed in a tree house in the middle of the woods.
Lovely.
It was incredible. And then a mirrored cabin. So the whole cabin was mirrors. You could see out, but you couldn't see in. And it was like camouflaged in the middle of the woods. Oh my gosh, it was
Wow.
amazing. And then right when I got back from that, it was just with my husband. We were celebrating our anniversary. And then right when I got back, I went to Arizona to lead a women's yoga retreat. So I was then in Arizona leading a retreat. But I do always stay one extra day after I wrap up a retreat to kind of give myself time to decompress. because if I come home the same day as all the retreat guests, I'm kind of garbage to my family because I'm so emotionally, physically, mentally drained. So I learned that if I stay one extra day and just rest and breathe and allow myself to be served, I come home better.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Megan, we'll get into the business side of it, the challenges, as being an entrepreneur and even setting up, and how you expanded it and grew it. But before that, I just want to know, how does your routine look like? How does your typical day look like when you wake up? What's the first thing that you do? How does the day look like?
Well, some mornings I wake up and teach yoga. So it just depends. I still teach, actually, you're in my home studio right now, and I teach virtually sometimes here. So it depends on what day of the week, but I usually do some sort of yoga and then I walk. So I like to get my steps in, and that's where I ground. And I am just a true believer of like being out in nature, letting the sun like hit your eyes. So I am outside walking, I'm practicing yoga. I have 4 kids that I'm like this morning, I was making a chicken Asian wrap for my 14-year-old because that's been his request for lunch. They're a little bougie like that, I guess.
Okay.
Um, so I'm like packing backpacks. Just I like to call myself like a modern day yogi mom. Like I'm doing the best I can, carpooling, dropping them off, walking them up to the bus stops, and then once I get all the kids where they belong, my day kind of starts. And a lot of that, yes, I teach a few yoga classes, but I have a lot of meetings. I spend a lot of my time and energy connecting with people in the community and then also being a leader to my team. Our team has grown, and I really want to lead them with such intention and care and make sure I take good care of them because they are so valuable to
Yeah.
Megan's Yoga Tribe. So I definitely run my business and I work on my business more than now I teach yoga working in my business. So it's just a different dynamic as we've scaled. And my days,
That is the
every
goal.
day
That is
looks
the goal.
different.
Yeah, no, I think that was perfect. Working on the business more rather than in the business, because that's what growth means, right? You're able to spend time on strategy and brainstorming and even taking time for yourself. And that's the goal in the end when you start your own business, right? So that was a perfect example. I do want to talk next about challenges, Megan. So, what challenges did you face starting up? How did you set up the business initially, right? Like, did you have help or were you the only one? I remember you mentioned that you were the only one teaching in the beginning, right? How did you acquire new clients, teaching, website, front desk, marketing? There's so much to do, right? How did you manage that all in the beginning?
Good question. I like that. So I like to, well, I'm a solopreneur, a one woman show, a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of Googling. Technology was always the biggest struggle. I tell people all the time, I cried more over technology than I have any other aspect of my business. The gaining the clients and growth, that came easy. And I tell the same thing to everyone. I met with some clients yesterday. The reason we have been successful is because I care deeply about people. If you truly just care about people and are aligned with your purpose, your business will be successful. So that part came very easy because I truly care about people and how they feel, and I want to provide them this amazing tool that I know that can help them live with more intention and with more purpose. But the technology, was really hard. I was grateful. My husband had a few friends from college that were programmers that were good with websites. So we would have them over. I also love to cook. So I would cook them like an incredible dinner, serve them really good wine from Sonoma.
Wow.
And then on a piece of paper, literally notebook paper, we would draw out what we wanted the website to look like, what we wanted
Mm,
our membership site to look like. And I'm just so grateful for people way smarter than me that could take on some of those roles. But it was not easy. It was a lot of trial and error. And I like to say hodgepodge. I would just put things together and try them. And then if it worked, it stuck. If it didn't, I would try something else. One thing about
right.
being an entrepreneur is you have to be flexible and you have to be a problem solver. And those two things I've gotten pretty good at over the last 4 years.
I'm sure you have. And I'm glad that you had that kind of support, with your husband's friends being around and helping you with the technical stuff at least. But I do want to understand the mode of acquisition, right? There are so many channels. So how did you acquire those initial clients? How did that look for you?
Yeah, my story is very organic. I would teach yoga anywhere. So
Hmm.
I would say, let's go do yoga in the park. Let's go do yoga at a coffee shop.
Okay.
I really just put myself out there as a servant to others. And
Hmm.
it comes back to that when you just genuinely believe in what you do and you care about people, it organically grows. If I'm just very human, and I think I'm also relatable to my community, being a busy working mom of four that's doing the best I can every
Yeah.
day. Um, People just see themselves in the season I'm in, but I care about people. And when you care about people, they feel seen and they want to do business with people that are human and that they care about. And we're just, I think for me too, supporting small business is really important. And that's something I do in my own life. If I have a choice to do business with a small business or a big box store, I'm always choosing that small business.
Business. Yeah.
And people see that, and so I've been able to really build and grow because I support small business, so they also support me.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Speaking of, business, in the end, profitability comes into the picture. Paying yourself comes into the picture, right? So when did you pay yourself for the first time? I mean, or getting that from the yoga business, and how was the feeling?
Okay, I love that question. Because of my financial trauma, like when you have financial trauma and you've been in deep debt, I am so aware. I am very aware of expenses and I'm very conscious of I see money as energy. That's how I like see money. So I paid myself for the very first time, like set up my salary and an employee of my business starting in 2024. So just recently. So this will be the first year, and
Oh,
that I
okay.
paid myself a salary, contributing to my 401k, matching it, and it feels really good. And then to be in a position now where we're gonna hire like a full time sales marketing person, I kind of said I'm ready to hire someone to manage me. So
Why not?
yeah, so
Was it
it feels
fun?
really good to be on payroll because my most of my adult life I've worked for free.
Mm. That's how you got the learning, I'm sure, at least it gave you the learning. It's not like you
Yeah.
lost any out on anything, right?
Well,
And
in this work, I tell people, anyone going in entrepreneurship, you need to love it enough that you would do it for free. You
mhm,
need to
mhm.
love it enough that you would do it for free. And yes, I was in a position where I could have definitely paid myself prior, but because of my financial trauma, I was like, we'll just keep everything in the business. We grew, we opened more locations, but then I felt like santosha, which means contentment. I'm like, we're really good where we are, and I think now it's time to get paid.
Why not? Of course. I'm glad that happened for you, and that feeling I can only understand. I mean, who doesn't like getting paid in the end? And especially you as an entrepreneur out of your own business, right? So that's just so different from an employee getting paid. So I can totally understand. And you did mention of location, Megan. So when did you decide that? I think now it's the time to expand to a new location, and how was the process?
Yeah, so we knew we needed to expand because within 30 to 45 days of us opening. So when I opened my first yoga studio, I said, I would like to have 7 to 11 classes a week. I will teach 7 to keep payroll really low. By the end of the first month, we had 25 classes a week. We
Okay,
had a wait list of 10 or more on every class. And
that's a good problem to have.
it was a beautiful problem. And what it told me, Priya, what it told me is that the community was ready for authenticity. The community was ready for real. They were ready for deep, meaningful connections. They were ready for a work in and not just a work out. And so I quickly was pretty much from the beginning looking for a second location. But I didn't want to take action um, too quickly, I guess. I didn't want to just be reactive to that. I wanted
Yeah.
to be thoughtful and intentional. And
Mhm.
I've been driving around, looking at spaces, working with a realtor, and I was sitting on my couch. And this sounds crazy, but a voice said, "Get up." So I stood up, I walked outside. One of my kiddos was playing outside, and the voice said, "Drive, drive." So I said, Augie, get in the car. We have to drive. I drive. I drive to this area in our town called Lakewood, and there was a space that said for rent. This, it sounds
This
crazy.
sounds no, I think it
It's
sounds amazing. It's like a gut feeling, like I have to do
right.
this.
Yeah, get up and drive. I physically got up and just drove. And I'm learning to trust that intuition. And it said rent. I called right there. I saw it the next day. And within 45 days, the studio was built out and open, our second location. So
Wow.
I just trusted. I knew that the right place was going to come available for our community. And I was able to even use one of my members who owns a construction company to do the build out, which felt so aligned as well. So, yeah, that's how we expanded. And I'm trusting it now because we are at the point where we're ready to expand. And I'm just trusting it. I'm telling people, I'm putting it out in the universe. And then I'm going to trust that the right place at the right time is going to be available for our community, because we know we can just keep expanding and help this. I see it as like a trickle down effect, the positive impact yoga has on an entire community.
I totally get that. It's like what's meant for you is gonna happen no matter what. And I believe, so strongly in the universe that there is whatever's yours, you're gonna get it, right? No matter what, just believe in it. So I'm glad you followed your gut feeling and your instinct and you went for it. And now you have multiple locations. So that's amazing. And speaking of these multiple locations, right? How many approximate members do you have, if you have any number on top of your mind, each
Yeah.
location?
Well, the cool thing about us is one of our big things is we have corporate memberships.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very different dynamic than a lot of studios. Yes, we have members, but we
Mm-hmm.
also service school districts in our area that have like 3,000 employees. So one of my contracts has the school district with over 3,000 employees. So we service them with our online studio. So it's unique. I mean, I can't say like we have this many members online, this many members in studio, this many corporate members, but we've grown pretty quick.
All right, got that. And how do you do your marketing? Just want to understand so that other studio owners, be it they're starting out or just settle in, they can just learn a bit from your marketing tips.
Sure. So I used to do it all on my own, and then 2 years ago, I was approached in an email by my now branding manager. Her name is Corey Brown. She is a branding photographer for purpose-driven women entrepreneurs, and she landed in my inbox saying, "Have you ever thought about bringing a photographer on your retreats with you?"
Okay.
And I had never thought about that. And we sat down, had a meeting. I basically fell in love with her. I was like, she was vibrant and aligned and believed so deeply in my brand and business that not only do I take her on every single retreat, she is my branding manager. And so she creates all the content, making everything look beautiful. So I'm the visionary. Like I come up with the ideas, the marketing, the programs, all of the partnerships we have within the
Right.
community, and then she makes it look really pretty. Um, I do Facebook ads, I do Google ads, I do the best I can with my website. Met with a client yesterday that just moved from a different state, and they found us simply by yoga studios near me, and her and her husband landed on my website, and it was affirming because they said that it spoke to them because they immediately knew there was no judgment there, that we were
Mm.
heart centered, that all levels are welcome, all bodies are welcomed. And that affirmed to me, like, all right, it's marketing's working, even though none of us are experts at it.
Mm.
I, I show up to the courses that Bookie provides. So they did the Facebook ads course. They did the webinar on websites. Like I try to soak in all that wisdom when I can from people way smarter than me, and then implement it in my business. So
Right. And in the end, no matter how many ads you're running or where you're running it, it's your website in the end. What content, if it doesn't speak to the person who's landed on the website, then there's no point because that's where they convert. So, and I've gone through it myself. So it is definitely, working, definitely giving. The next question would be, Megan, what do you do for client retention? Do you have some kind of,
sure.
strategy for that, loyalty? How's that?
So I know with Bookie, they do now have like a referral. I have not even dabbled into it. It is on my to-do list for sure. I will say with client retention, what I've seen and experienced in my business is just to serve people, see people. I know their names. I know their children. I know where they're traveling. Like we care deeply about them, and then you're doing business with a person instead of them feeling like they're a number or they're a swipe on a key card when they walk into a big box gym. And so for us, client retention is just serving from our hearts, showing up, holding space. Our clients are our best marketing tools. They are who refers people to us because they're the ones having the transformational experiences in our studio, and they want to bring other people in to also experience it. So for me, retention is serving, um, holding space, caring,
Yeah.
and of course, we use the tools of Bookie. We send emails weekly. We send out texts. We do push notifications when something exciting is happening.
Mhm.
Um, but ultimately, serving people. They stay when they feel seen.
It's the client experience and the client service, right? And you do that right, and they will keep coming back to you. So
That's right.
that's absolutely on point. And do you remember, Megan, like who was that first team member or partner after you? Like you started on your own, and who was that? Do you remember who was that first person?
I do. I actually remember the first member that signed up, and I remember my
Wow.
first employee I hired.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually saw a post on Pinterest the other day about when someone believes in you, and it came right back. Our very first member was named Shauna Fleener, and she's
Yep.
still a member today. And she went to a workshop on Sunday and has went on retreat with me. And she was our very first member. And that is so scary when you launch something that you've never done and you're putting it out to the world and you have no idea if someone's going to click or not. So it feels like yesterday, even though it was 4.5 years ago. And then my first employee was Hillary, and Hillary, oh, I'll get emotional. She's been going through melanoma, skin cancer for years now. She's a very young mom of two, and she is absolute love and light. And her motto is smile through it. She's a bar teacher, so she teaches really challenging classes. And she saw my vision and just texted me yesterday saying, "I love you." Like that that was my first team member, and yeah, I'm so grateful to work with the team I do, and they're amazing. They are the reason we are successful.
And I'm happy that you were able to find such people who've been there for you, professionally. And I'm sure personally also, right? And, remembering that first member was something, I was surprised about. So that's pretty cool. I mean, you're really connected to your people. And that's what you've been saying, all this while, we serve our community and we're connected to them. We relate to them, right? So that's really great. Speaking of, again, communities, I want to ask you this. What are some of the events you never miss as an entrepreneur or as a fitness business, owner?
Within my studio or outside of my studio?
So when I say events, these are more like networking events for you to learn
Sure.
more about entrepreneurship. Yeah, yeah.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. Okay, now I'm tracking. Yeah. So for me, like I am on the wellness commission for our city. So it's a commission of, I think there's about 12 of us that are really focused and intentional about how we can bring wellness to our city. So that's important. I also love to show up for any women in business networking groups. I just am a cheerleader for purpose driven women entrepreneurs because I coach purpose driven women entrepreneurs. And so if I can go and support or be there for a networking group to learn from people who are way ahead of me or to also lead by example for people that are just starting, that sets my soul on
Mm.
fire. So put me in a group of women entrepreneurs, any type of networking event, or I will say yes if I'm available. And then for us too, my husband and I both, we support several charities. Like tonight, we're going to a gala for a local youth charity. So that's
Okay.
important for us as well, is to give back to the community that
Yeah,
generously pours into our business as well. So,
got it. And what's your long-term business goal as of now?
yeah. Oh, good question. My husband and I talk about this often.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we really see ourselves opening several new studios within the next 3 to 5 years. That is ultimately our goal, to continue to grow our reach and our brands in a sustainable way. And then, you as an entrepreneur, you always have to have an out game, right? Like we age, like this is what we're doing, um, and I don't know. My daughter is 18. She went through yoga teacher training school when she was 16. I don't know if this is something that she is going to want to run someday, like a family business, but I would definitely want to be in a position, since I own a yoga teacher training school, maybe one of my students, someone who's taught for me, maybe it's some sort of succession plan in that way, because we have to have a plan.
Mhm.
I'm 41 now, so I could see, in years and years down the road, I would love for either, of course, my daughter to run the company, or someone that has went through yoga teacher training school or taught for me. So there's some sort
Right.
of succession
Right.
plan.
And when that happens, and I really hope that happens, right? What would Megan be doing when she's in her, 50s and she's done this? What's your plan?
Yeah. Well, travel
Yes.
is my
Yes.
plan. I love stillness and dinners at home, and I don't get to experience a lot of that as a busy
Mm.
working mom of four. And
Yeah.
so I'm going to crave more stillness. I'm going to crave adventure, play, lots of travel. And then depending, I have 4 kids, so that means at some point I'm gonna have weddings to plan and grandkids to spoil. And like I don't want to wish time away by any means, but there is something really exciting about experience that with my husband as well, and having adult children and creating new traditions. And I'm excited about it, but time can
Yes.
slow down as well.
Yes, that all sounds wonderful. And Megan, this is my favorite, one of my favorite questions, which is one piece of advice for studio owners starting up. I really want to quote you on this for my wall of inspiration. So, what's that one piece of advice you want to give? You've been through so much, you've worked hard, you've set up your business. What's that one advice?
The one advice is to know deeply who you are. When you are deeply connected to your purpose, then you can live and lead with intention. But if you aren't grounded in who you are, it's never going to feel like it's in flow. And so that for me was, I was at a position where I knew exactly who I was, exactly my purpose on this earth. And so it makes being an entrepreneur and creating this beautiful community a lot easier, because I'm so grounded in it. It is me. It is
Yeah.
who I am. I do a lot of speaking engagements, and sometimes I get a little nervous before. And I'm like, we all go through a imposter syndrome. Do I know enough? Is this really? But the words are within me, and I know it's who I am. And so, any young entrepreneur, that is the advice I would give them, is just be very rooted in who you are. Know your values, what matters most in your life, and then really create and design a business that honors those values. And for me, it's my marriage, my kids, my personal self care, which is physically, mentally, and emotionally, and then my business, that my community. So those 4 things are the most important things in my life. So my calendar reflects that, my energy reflects that. And as an entrepreneur, if you know your core values and you can design a business around it, you'll be successful.
Absolutely. That's very well put together. Thanks so much for, putting it so rightly. I think it sufficed it really well. So thanks so much for that. I do have this one question. Was there at any point you felt that, was there any incident which made you feel, is this the right thing to do? Did you have any kind of doubt like that so far ever?
Oh, about opening Megan's Yoga Tribe?
Yes.
No, I've never had any doubt about opening
Beautiful.
Megan's Yoga Tribe. I think the only doubt I have is like the expansion. Like, it's like we're ready to grow, but where do we go? What location? Like, it's not if we're gonna grow, it's where are we gonna grow? Do we go to this city? Do we go to this town? So that's more. But again, I'm gonna come back to that knowing and that trust, and believing that I already know, and when it's available for me, it's going to be there, and I'll take action then.
Wonderful. So, Meghna, I think thanks so much. This is all I wanted to ask you in terms of your journey and the business, right? It's been lovely chatting with you. That brings us to the end of today's episode. A big thank you to Megan for sharing her journey with us. If you're looking to chat with Megan on everything yoga and even growing your fitness studio, be sure to connect with her. Links are in the description and podcast notes. And don't forget to subscribe and follow for more fitness founder stories.